Clearly, in the course of today, there's a tried and tested formula for these short presentations, which is a limited number of slides and talk about them coolly and calmly. I'm going to depart from that in two ways. I'm going to race through a lot of slides very quickly. It also seems to be tried and tested to ask if people can hear me at the back, but I'm going to ask if people can understand me at the back, which is slightly different. But Peter Rees started today talking about the history of the City of London, and this building sits smack bang in the foreground view of St Paul's Cathedral. So when you look out the window, great view. St Paul's is also a curse as well as a blessing, and we also sit smack bang in the foreground of the view of St Paul's from the top of the monument. So we've got a few pretty serious constraints to struggle with, which drive the design. What this slide is intended to show, the yellow bit is the District and Circle Line tunnels, brown is the scheduled ancient monument, the pink bits going up from the bottom of the slide are the railway tracks. So this is a pretty complex site that we're dealing with, and then dear old St Paul's caps us vertically and caps us underneath with the need to sustain a live railway station. So we've got about 32.5 metres to get 8 floors of office space into. And again, Mark Sweatman talked in his opening remarks this morning, we needed 8 floors of office space in this building. We can touch upon it in the debate, but value facilitates this development, and don't forget, perhaps unlike King's Cross, this air rights development funded the work which has happened to the railway station, and also has funded the work which is just due to complete on the underground station. So when you talk about value, it's a very hard economic equation on this site. Hero also talked about flexibility not being welcome in architecture. I have to say we disagree with that. In commercial office space, an ability to split a floor plate for it to appeal to different tenant types, we think is absolutely crucial. And so our somewhat simplistic diagram for this building, 4 table legs are dictated where you can get them down through the station, and then we have a grid of column-free office space which is intended to allow the flexibility I mentioned just now. The trick with this scheme, if you like, if you look at the column grid and project it down onto what sits beneath us, the red crosses are where those columns can't go in the ground. So that's really what drives the big idea. And Peter Rees also mentioned this image on the left-hand side, which he thinks we use to illustrate the principles of the scheme. I actually just use it to make the point that structural engineers have always been a bunch of miserable bastards, and seemingly still are. More accurate in terms of the way this structure works is actually a part of the 4th rail bridge rather than the whole thing itself. So it's a big balanced cantilever. It's not quite a seesaw, it's braced in the middle. And when we pitched off to see Peter, we used this image of Santiago Calatrava sculpture, again to make the point, it's a big balanced seesaw in essence. There was much talk about not going to see Peter with finite models with brass plates on them, so we made the whole damn model out of brass, just in case there was any doubt. And we tried to distract Peter with an image of a sweaty Frenchman smoking a cigarette.
He'd like that.
That was, in essence, to try and mask the fact that while this purported to be a very finite scheme, we had no idea what the architecture was going to be at all. Luckily, as Peter said, the good thing about involving him in the process, he told us not to worry about the architecture and to concentrate on the engineering. And so what we have is a sort of a smooth glass bubble inside what he called a crusty engineered frame on the outside. Getting it to work is actually really quite difficult. I mean, I jest that we've got 32.5 metres to get 8 floors of office in. That's a bit of a struggle. And it's made doubly hard by the St Paul's view. We can't put any plant on the roof. So the red element you see in the bottom right-hand corner of this slide is the somewhat novel device you see, well, you would see if you looked out the windows, which is the plant tower that contains all the kit that you would normally put on the roof of a commercial office building. We couldn't do that, so it's stuffed on the giant exhaust stack on the side, which, if you cared to wander around the Bell Tavern, looks a bit like that. And then just to go back to the fact that this office development funds the railway station as well. Cannon Street is the second busiest station in the city after Liverpool Street, and it was a pretty god-awful place to start your day or end it, as I do travelling through from Kent. The diagram for the station was actually almost as simplistic as the office building diagram, which was to do with enhancing these divergent east and west flows of people. And perhaps the most difficult thing of all was persuading both Hines and Network Rail that we were going to remove the value of the retail at the back of the pavement and try and create this sort of large public space with the entrance to the office in the middle. Kernel to everything was the ability to see the departure boards for the trains from all bar one, and this early study was done to prove that that is the case, and I guarantee you can see it in the pub. We've got a toaster in the reception area which you can use to brown your bread, but it's meant to act as a marker that draws people into the entrance to the office. And then finally, London Underground. London Underground represents roughly about 150th of the volume of the scheme, maybe even a smaller fraction of that. And yet the way it's working, it may yet turn out to be 10% of the cost. So in terms of the complexity and the sheer will that's been required from Hines to make this a viable scheme, then taking the corner off, which is largely what we've done to create this new space, is kind of really key to this development. It's a big ask from a commercial development point of view to fund all these works. And I hope that this scheme kind of touches upon some of those things in terms of urban regeneration, civic space, perhaps.